And it is time now for our fun fact of the day, brought to you this morning by Don's Easy Pay. And in our studios this morning, a young lady who is, where are you actually from? I know it's all part of the University of Arkansas, the big dig we're doing out here, archaeologists crawling all over Sevier County, where are you from?
I am from Fayetteville, but we've got archaeologists with the Arkansas Archeological Survey from all over the state. We have 10 stations. And so our Southern Arkansas University station archaeologist is running this dig up here, and that is Dr. Carl Drexler. So he does historic archaeology, and he's working on Caddo archaeology here, learning more about Caddo past and kind of historic past as well. We found at this site, which we'll tell you more about, but it has a historic component as well as the Caddo salt making component.
Michelle Rathgeber is her name, and Michelle, you mentioned the fact that we have folks from Arkansas here, but I've also noticed a number of out-of-state plates out on our parking lot as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we put this dig together every summer in June for 2 weeks, and it's the Arkansas Archeological Survey is professional archaeologists employed by the state, and then we have the Arkansas Archeological Society, which is a group of people who are just interested in archaeology. Some of them are professional archaeologists, some of them have been coming for years, some of them are students in college and high school. Anyone can come, you join the society. They have a website, and so you join, you sign up, you come down, and we teach you how to do scientific archaeological excavation in 2 weeks during the summer. And for us, that works great because we can get so much work done. When we have, I think we have 55 people this year who've come down, and most of them come from Arkansas, but we have people from Illinois, we have people from Virginia. I think we've had someone from California in the past, so all over the country.
And the particular site we're dealing with is actually west of DeQueen, and it's an old salt marsh?
Yeah, it's a salt marsh, and I think they've known about it for a long time, obviously, as a salt marsh. And we know from past excavations that the Caddo Indians were there far in the past. And then we also know that in the 1930s, I believe, there was a historic salt works there. And so what we wanted to find out was more about how people were making salt there, who was making salt there, and maybe when they were making salt there. So we've put in some excavation units in 3 different areas along the salt marsh to start to see if we can find out some of that information. Okay,
so what about, are we coming across some artifacts in this particular dig? Y'all have been at this for how many days now?
We started on Saturday, so we're on day 4 today. But actually, we've found a lot of things already, and stuff that we didn't expect. We've got Caddo sherds, so we can identify those because they have salt temper in the pottery. In the clay of the shell temper. Okay, all right, yeah. In the clay of the pottery, so little bits of shell. So when we find those broken pieces of pottery, we know that that's a Caddo component. And so we're looking at that, and if we find big enough pieces, we can start to see what shapes they were. So what we're looking for is big salt pans, and those are really thick pottery, and they would have been pretty big, shallow pans that they would put water in, the salt water from the marsh, and let it evaporate away or fired it to boil the water off to get the salt out. But then we're also finding a historic component. So the other day we found part of a brick wall that we didn't expect to be there at all. It's at least 3 layers of brick so far. And we're not sure. There's no building that shows up on historic photographs there, right at that spot. But so we don't know. It wasn't there in 1938. That's all we know. So we're hoping we can find some more artifacts so we can date that and find out when that was built.
A mystery.
Or what it is.
Yeah. Right. That is so cool. Now, I'm just wondering, Michelle, how common are these salt marshes in this area? Yeah,
and I can probably get you a map that we can post for people on your website. But they're not super common, but they're not completely uncommon either. They're part of they're part of a geological feature. You have to have a spring coming up through a salt layer somewhere in the geology deep down. I know there are a couple down here, and I think they're more toward the south, but in the Midwest generally, there aren't very many. So people down here who had access to this salt would have a commodity that other people needed to trade for, and that would have been important to their economy as the Caddos and in the historic times as well.
Can you possibly date how far back we're looking at the Native Americans that were actually mining the salt here?
Yeah, that's part of what we're hoping to do. So right now we definitely have that Caddo component, which is they were there at European contact, and they were there for many years before then. And we're hoping as we go down through the layers that maybe we can find evidence of people even before that. And they probably are still Caddo people that were just longer ago than the Caddo Nation kind of had that name. But people have lived in this region for thousands of years, and likely they would have known about the salt marsh and could have been using it, but we don't have that evidence yet. But hopefully by the end of 2 weeks from now, we'll have gotten down deep enough to see if we have that.
Well, isn't it cool that, something that we take for granted, salt, would be such a commodity that you would actually have, there was a rather large Native American population right there, right here on the western side of Sevier County. What was the name of that community? Ultima Thule, or there was a?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Okay, there was an old there's an old dig out there from years ago, but anyway, it's just you have to wonder if maybe the fact that there was that salt marsh there, and the fact that we had that commodity here may have predated that even.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the salt marsh would have been there because that's ancient geology that's causing that. So it wouldn't surprise me that people were utilizing it through much of time. Salt becomes more important as people start farming and start eating more corn, and you're eating less meat, so you're not getting so much salt from what you're eating naturally. You need to add some of that in. So that's why we have that really large Caddo component, because they really needed to ingest some of that. But like I said, they don't have salt other places, so it was a trade good as well. So
what, if the public, and all of us are not going to be, archaeologists. Some of us are not going to be really crazy about getting out there. And
right.
It takes dedication to be out there on a muggy day like today digging around.
Yeah.
Is there some way we can possibly take a look at what all y'all have done?
Yeah, absolutely. So tonight we have a public talk by our director, Dr. Alex Barker. And then on Saturday, we're having an open house.
Okay.
So we are at our lab. Our field lab is based at UA Cossatot. And we... on Saturday, just all day. If people, we work from about 6:30 to about 3:30, 4 in the afternoon. If people want to come up to UA Cossatot and get a tour around the lab, see some of the artifacts we've been finding, get a little explanation of what we're doing, that kind of thing, everyone is welcome on that day. So just kind of get a little tour. When you come in the front door, we have a little desk. You'll check in, just say you're here to visit, and they'll take you around the lab, and you'll get to see what we're doing. So.
Awesome. Well, it's fantastic. It's so many times we take this kind of stuff for granted, but it's great that we've got folks that are here to actually dig into our history, get the whole thing here, dig into our history. Michelle, thank you for coming by today, and look forward to seeing you again real soon, okay?
Yeah, great. Thank you so much.
And that is our fun fact of the day this morning, brought to you by Don's Easy Pay here on Ed 88.